Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Praise Podcast. My name is Eric Lade. I get the pleasure and joy of hosting this podcast each and every time we release an episode. And, of course, I am joined by really my favorite co-host that I have, and that is the Brooke Paninsky. Hey, Brooke.
Hi.
Am I your favorite co-host that you've ever had?
If I say you're my only,
well,
does it count as my favorite?
Yeah, I think that works.
They will count it as my favorite.
Favorite, perfect, great.
Yeah.
So it works out well that we actually do like each other, believe it or not.
Most days.
Most days we do, in fact, actually like each other. So welcome to the Praise Podcast. If you have joined us for all the episodes we've had, then welcome back. You are a part of the Praise Podcast family, and we, of course, are always so thankful for you. If this is your first time listening, welcome. We couldn't be more happy to have you along with us. Whether you're new or not, we always want to encourage you guys to share this podcast on your social media or through text or however you share things. We would love for you to share this podcast as well as leave us a rating and a review. That helps this podcast get seen and known by more people. And Brooke and I are certainly not interested in any more jobs or anything. So it's not really for us to have more to do. It's more just we want to get the message of this podcast out. So if you guys could do us a favor as a part of just this Praise Podcast community, we'd love for you to share this podcast, rate it, review it. We always say it. We always prefer like kind and nice ratings, but you know, if you got to throw some heat, then throw some heat, and we'll probably just ignore it and say whatever. But that's just how we roll.
Sounds like us.
That does. That'd be like, well, that sucks for them. But yeah. So anyways, appreciate you all listening. We have got some fun stuff to talk about today that we are looking forward to chatting about. Really, like I said, if this is your first time listening, really this podcast is basically Brooke and I having conversations that we would have in the office, but we're like, man, other people would probably want to join in on this conversation, or that conversation would be really good for other people to hear. So basically, we just kind of decide what we want to talk about, and then we say, let's just go have that conversation in the studio with microphones in front of us and see what happens. So it's a pretty loose, relaxed, we really never know what exactly is going to happen. So just join in for the ride, and if you're on the treadmill, if you're in your car, whatever, just sit back, relax, and we would love to have you join in on the conversation because that's what this is. So you can always do that by emailing me, Eric, ERIC, at centralnow.com, or you could email Brooke at BROOKE at centralnow.com. She likes to get all the negative and bad things. So if you have good things, come to my email. Bad things, your negative reviews, those go to Brooke's
It's a very misleading thing to tell our people.
Okay, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe just don't send them. If you have something bad to say, just don't send it. You know, it's Friday. It's Friday. We don't need that kind of negativity in our lives right now. Of course, well,
but we do love making friends.
Yeah, we do.
We love the nice emails.
Yeah, if you have good things to say, we love new friends, and so we do
great.
always appreciate that. But Brooke, how's your week been?
My week has been good. It's been busy. We are coming off of a sick weekend. So we went to Branson over a month ago, I guess CA did. And on that trip, I remember being in the van ride and I requested my last weekend of rest for essentially the year just because Christmas. And I was like, okay, I'll take the last week in November off because it's holiday with Thanksgiving with the kids. They're out of school. Anyways, so, childcare gets wonky. And then I was like, and it's right before Christmas craziness. So whatever. So, it was planned weeks in advance. And of course, my weekend of rest rolls around and it was the hardest weekend I've had in so long. Just when your kids are sick, you're sick, your husband's sick. I wasn't sick, thankfully, but everybody else was. But when you're sick and your crew is sick, it just makes it so hard and you can't do anything normal. Everything with your regular schedule, your regular programming stops, and you are just stuck at home. And for me, it's really hard when my kids are sick because you really don't know just how sick or how okay. When you're sick or, if Hayden's sick, it's he's an adult. He might not always say really how he feels, but I can kind of gauge him. But when your kids are sick and they have 104, 5 fevers and a few weeks even prior to that, they were all sick. So I thought we were kind of over it. But another bug came and knocked them out. So anyways, all that to say, I had a weekend of rest that was not very restful. But the Lord knew that I needed to be home anyways. So
there you go.
And I was home.
Knew what was coming.
And it didn't change anybody else's plans really. So I guess that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that we're all somewhat, healthy, back at it, kind of, sort of.
Hayden and I had kind of the same thing at the same time, and it was no joke. I mean,
no, not at all.
I don't really get quote unquote sick, knock on wood. I mean, like I'll, get the standard cold stuff or little sinus infections here and there.
You're notorious for like your sinus stuff.
Yeah.
That's what always gets you.
Yeah, but
those Easter lilies.
Yeah, but no, it was no joke.
You guys are both down now.
Yeah, fevers are no fun, but we're glad that they're back to being sort of healthy.
It's just another crazy week in our household, but what's new? It's fine. But what about you? How's your week been?
Well, it's been a good week. It's been, as you mentioned, Easter. You got me on Easter now. Christmas craziness.
Now it's your camel allergies.
Literally.
Allergies.
So we're preparing for Christmas. So I guess if you are new to this podcast, Brooke and I work at a church, and so we are preparing for Christmas, and we do. We've kind of become known for this live nativity scene that we do each year in our services. And so as a part of that, the animals always come in early, usually, to start to get used to just, the volume of things and get back around the room and the environment and people and all that stuff. Yeah. So we had our donkey was here for our rehearsal on Wednesday night, or just a regular rehearsal, but was here just to kind of be in the room and walk around and whatever. And our donkey's name is Betty White. And in honor, we did name her Betty White before Betty White passed away. But yeah, so now she's just like the living honor of Betty White. But so Betty was here, and her, I guess you call trainer, handler, Kate Page. Kate is seriously.
We could have a whole conversation about Kate Page.
Kate is seriously the most like talented / versatile / just the most random things that you would think like, who do I know that could do that? Kate can probably do it. Yeah, like, it's just crazy. But she is like literally an award-winning like animal trainer, really. Like, I mean, she trains dogs, she trains horses, but she works with our donkey and kind of gets, because donkeys can be stubborn and hard to train, but she always does a great job with that. So she was here with Betty, and they were getting used to everything. But literally, as we were singing, I was like, man, like I sneezed 2 or 3 times. I was like, what's going on? Like, why am I sneezing? And then like I just kind of felt it. And I was like, oh man, am I allergic to this donkey, or like is this donkey fur? Whatever, but I'll be fine.
Story of your life, really.
There's always
that's
something.
How your week has been.
Yeah, there's always something, but it didn't really affect me after that. So maybe it was the donkey. But
Let's hope.
But yeah. So if you are looking for something to do on Christmas, you should come hang out. Christmas at Central, Central Christian Church, Mount Vernon, Illinois. You should look that up. But that starts December 20th, runs all the way through December 23rd, 6 and 8 p.m. each night. 8 services. That's right. You heard that right. 8 services. And really, it is, I mean, the Christmas event of the season, really, in our area. And so we don't say that like prideful. It's just really is a big deal.
It's crazy to think about. Like that, I mean, people have pinned that. You know what I mean? Like and people come from all over.
I mean,
and even
hours away.
Yeah, and even other churches will come and bring their church family to our church. Like, for just to come and see it and all the things. Like it is just insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's such an honor, but it's wild to think about.
It is. So we're gearing up for that, but hopefully you can make plans. Come hang out with us for that. It is always a good time. I would encourage you to not wait for the last night or even probably the second to last night to come, because it's going to get, I think it's going to be busy.
Well, you've been telling everybody, like, if you want to come and you want a good seat, if you want to, the night and time to come, what'd you say, the 20th and the 21st? Tuesday
and Wednesday, the 20th, 21st at 8 p.m. specifically.
Yeah, those are always, those, so take it from, I don't know, what is that, like a tip?
Yeah,
like
that is inside
information.
Inside information. Telling you, if you don't want to have to fight for a seat, stand out in the cold for forever.
It's a much more enjoyable pre-service experience.
Yeah, you could just come on Tuesday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. and you will thank me.
Yeah.
You will thank
they'll
me
write
for
in.
coming.
They'll
Yes.
thank you for that one.
Yes, you will thank me. But we're
Cool.
really, really excited about that, and there's a ton of work going on for that. And
Yeah.
thankfully, we have the best volunteers, and we have just the best staff that put all that together. So we're looking forward to that. But Brooke, before we get into what we're going to talk about today,
Sure.
we do a little thing called Song Spotlight, where we spotlight a song each and every time we do a podcast, which is basically just a song that we have been listening to fairly regularly when we listen to music, either in our car, in our office, whatever. So, Brooke, why don't you start us? What's your song today?
Sure. So my song is King of Kings. It's the Hillsong Brooke Ligertwood version, of course.
Throwback.
Yeah. And what's so funny about that is earlier this week I was listening to my playlist on shuffle as I was getting ready, and that song came on, and it was a song that I hadn't heard in a while, but I've always liked that song, and so the Lord just kind of highlighted that to me, and then like randomly throughout the week, it just kind of kept coming back to mind, or I'd come across it again or whatever. So then First Thursday rolls around, and actually it had been like the Wednesday before the Thursday, so it was like the day before. And you had put out the set for like the next day for First Thursday service. And you had a song on there that I was like, yeah, nope. Because I'm like, it's going to be me that's going to have to do this. And so I was like, Eric, can you please can we trade this out? And you were like, well, you have to pick it. And so then I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, like that is so hard for me to do. I do not know how you do that every single weekend or for every single event. It's just, so that's just a hard thing for me to do. But as I was like going through different like keys and all the things, whatever, I thought I found one that would be good. And I was like, you just know when it's not, you know what I mean? You're like, yeah, it's close, but no. And I sat in my office and I was like, okay, Holy Spirit, you're going to have to just like guide me to which one, because I don't have time to sit here and keep scrolling. I don't even know where to start or whatever. And then I know more, just like look at my screen and then it says King of Kings. And I was like, duh, like, of course, like the Lord is so funny like that. And so I was like yelling down the hallway, hey, Eric, or maybe I even texted you, I don't remember, but I was just like, what about King Kings? And you were like quickly to approve. So I knew it was a good one because you're like, yeah, that will work. Anyways, so I just thought that was kind of cool. But I've listened to that one a lot the last like week and a half, and then we did it for First Thursday, and I think it's super suiting too for this season because, and of course, since we're like really being so intentional with planning and our thoughts and preparation for Christmas, but I just thought it was so perfect, even the timing of just that song to come back and to swing and to have that settled in my spirit. Like it's just a gospel story and a song, and that's just like, it's Christmas. I mean, you know what I mean? Like talk about a huge chapter in the gospel story. It's Christmas time. So I don't know. I just thought it was fitting for, just for this season. So yeah, that's my song I've been listening to.
3 things with that song, which feels like a lot, but it's just,
Let's hear
again,
it.
it's how I guess God works. So one, I was planning for sets, for upcoming weekend services. And as I was in the planning for that, next weekend, I actually have planned to do King of Kings.
No way.
Yeah, because I was like, man, we haven't done this song in a while, and it just fit. I was like, it just fits well.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But so one, it was interesting that we've done it now. Like we're gonna do it twice, really
and
soon.
we usually do that. Like we do try to like have it, like when we did Let the Light In, we did it first at First Thursday, and then we did it again. Then we did it for the first time on a regular weekend, like that same weekend. So sometimes it's like good to kind of have that back to back kind of thing. So like no one would have thought anything of it.
Nope.
That's so cool.
So there's that one, and then 2. I thought it was like by far the most reaction, like the most engaged song that we had at First Thursday. So there you go.
Yeah,
like it was like, which
so
our people
good.
love that song.
Yeah.
And then 3, when I think of King of Kings,
And it was an acoustic set.
yeah.
So
Which is
that says a
cool.
lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways.
So when I think of King of Kings, it takes me back to Christmas 2020 outside.
Yes.
You sang that song,
I sang that song
for our Christmas services. So obviously 2020 was COVID, all that stuff.
we were
didn't
outside.
have.
It
We
was
were
snowing,
outside, raining, snowing. It was
so
cold.
Cool. It was so fun, but
It was
miserable.
so fun and miserable all at the same time.
Glorious.
But yeah, so I thought about that song, like that. Just
I
every
didn't
time
even-
we
that
do that
didn't even
song,
dawn on me.
that pops up, because I think the main reason that's lasting, because like that was not super like before that like really all of this stuff had kind of nailed down, that like we had kind of we had offered you the position, and like we kind of knew
Jingle Jam Sunday.
Yeah. And so like
We'll never
we
forget
knew,
it.
so we knew all that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, because I remember, I for whatever reason, I will always probably remember. I remember like I think we had just gotten done with the last one or whatever, like the last service that we did of that. And I remember we both kind of looked at it, like, man, next year this is on us. Like both, like we will have to figure this out next year.
Yeah.
So
and here we are.
Our
second go at it.
Yep. But anyways, that's a good one.
That's
good
so
song.
cool. What about you? What was
All
your
right,
song?
so mine is also kind of involving Christmas. So as I've been getting ready for Christmas, spoiler alert, one of the songs we're going to do in our Christmas services is called
Insider Scoop.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
So if you listen to the podcast, you get details and information that nobody else gets. That's the benefits
That's so cool.
of the Praise Podcast family right there. So see, and you don't even have to pay a subscription for this. This is free. Like you're getting this information for free. What was our first tip? Oh yeah, come 8:00. Man, we are just giving out all kinds of gems today.
We are.
So Son of Heaven by Brandon Lake is my song. And the so our Christmas theme is Behold the King. And if you listen to the song, listen to the chorus. The chorus definitely is my favorite part. But I don't know. It's just a powerful song, kind of like King of Kings. It kind of walks through the gospel story really in a way.
Yeah.
And just kind of speaks to that even at the beginning as a baby to like on a cross to now like Holy Spirit living inside of us kind of thing. Like no matter each of those stage, the call was still the same to like behold the King and to worship him. And so I really like the song. I think it's going to be good. It's going to fit really well in our Christmas services.
Yeah.
And Brandon he's a good writer, great vocals. It's good. So
Great hair.
He does.
He has great hair.
He has great hair.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people don't say that about me, but they probably say that about you.
You think so?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
I mean, they definitely don't say it about me. I don't even have hair, so it's not. If
People who don't know what you look like, they probably didn't get that until you just said you don't have hair.
No, I don't. So
anyways, so it's great.
All right, Brooke.
So I think this is super fun because you know how you always say we just talk about things that we just talk about, you know, and I feel like so many, the majority of our podcast episodes truly do come from conversations we've had, or just, you know, like that one time, you know, we shared, I was just driving the car and, you know, it doesn't matter. Like it just comes from so many like real life places and times. And so this one is so funny because, this is something that got me thinking. And I was like, this would be a great episode to talk about on our podcast. So I'm going to tell a story. And so, I have a little brother and, his name is Blake, and he is, I would say, and not in like a prideful way or anything like that, but like, I would say like I am more of like a spiritual mentor to my siblings, than probably a lot of other people. Like when they need it and when they're ready. Like I try not to, I mean, gosh, I feel like mother bear around my siblings sometimes, you know, like I just worry about them and then I'm just
I've heard you talk on the phone to them before.
You're like, are you their mother or their sister?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, dang, you're a little hard there, weren't you? And they're like, they need it.
Yeah, like that's definitely my relationship with them. And like, I mean, I'm 10 years older than my youngest sister. So, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. But so like it typically happens, you know, if they're in a season where they are seeking the Lord, and if they're in a moment or a situation where they're kind of, you know, into that, typically I'm the one that gets a phone call, you know, that like has, I mean, that they hope I have an answer to their question, you know? So this is a while back, I get a phone call from my brother, and he was essentially asking a question about the Bible or whatever, but he was talking to one of his friends about, you know, Jesus, and which posed the question, which then he calls me And then he's asking me what the question and everything. And then he was like, yeah. And I told him, I was like, well, listen, let me just call my sister and let me just ask her, because she's like really Christian, And I just thought like, and that comment alone just kind of stopped me in my tracks, because I just thought like, there's so much I could say about that, or so much that I take in from that, But like, I'm like, what does that even mean? At first I thought, well, that's sweet, because I'm just like, at least he knows, like, and it's sweet that like to people who don't know me, but yet he is talking to, he thinks that about me, that he knows that about me and trusts that part of me. Which that's super cool. But then at the same time, like, I want to be like, don't be dumb. Like, what do you mean really Christian? You're like, what does that even mean? And so, but that was something that I thought we would talk about, first, because seriously, what does that even mean? Like, I want to challenge, like, I guess us to talk about that and think that through. But like, if someone says, oh, like Eric, he's really Christian, or like, oh, Brooke, oh, that Brooke girl. Yeah. She's like really Christian. Like, what does it mean? And is that right or wrong to say? Like, I mean, I just kind of want to chew on that for a minute.
So the first thing that pops in my mind is just the idea that I don't think it's a bad thing by any means. Right. But the first thing that pops in my mind is just the idea of probably somebody, and I know Blake a little bit, and just his story and stuff. And so I think somebody who is still fresh and learning and still really kind of, learning to walk and stuff as a new Christian in a lot of ways. So I think when they, for somebody like that to see somebody they know has been walking that for longer than they have, and honestly lives out the walk that they're walking, so I think it's kind of like that way of being like, oh, well, they're almost like really, I don't want to say like really good at something, but you know what I mean? Like there's people who play sports, and then there's people who really play sports. You know what I mean? Like, sure. I mean, there's a lot of, gosh, I don't know what the current stat is, but for the longest time, in America, like 70, 80% of people would call themselves a Christian, right? And so I think we can probably look at our country and a lot of people, and we can probably pretty safely say 70 to 80% are probably not really walking out a Christian faith. And so, I don't know, my initial thought is for somebody to say really Christian, to me, that's saying like it is noticeable that you are living life differently. Like that the Lord actually, like what he says and what he is what you are trying to carry out. Like it's a noticeable difference compared to, honestly, a lot of people who call themselves Christians, but there is nothing different about them, like from somebody who's not. And so I think that's like, because like I said, there's a lot of people that'd be like, oh yeah, I'm fine with church, or yeah, I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. But then really look at it. Are you really?
Sure.
Are you really that? And if you are, it's probably noticeable. And it's also probably noticeable if you're really not. Mm-hmm. That's my initial thoughts.
Yeah. Well, the hypocrisy of it all, like I think that's a good point, because so many people, culturally, or, just maybe in your family, or that, from work, or even that, in the church building, come on now. Mm-hmm. Like, they are Christians, but then like, that's like one of the biggest things people talk about is like with Christians, or people who are on the fence about Christianity or Jesus, and they really like their deciding factor of if I'm going to dive into that, faith or not, is their experience with people who claim to be in that faith, and it's usually not good, right? We hear about that all the time. So we do hear about like, like, oh, well, Sally Sue says she's a Christian, but she's like the most like judgmental and rude person or whatever, and or like Benny says he's a Christian, but he was cussing out the mailman the other day. You know what I mean? Like,
where did Sally, Sue, and Benny come from? Where did those names?
Just,
I was like
popped
you're
up.
watching Little
I don't
House
know
on
any
the Prairie.
Sallys and I don't know any Bennies off the top of my head, so maybe that was just like a safe place.
Jared's got you watching Little House on the Prairie.
Oh my
or
gosh,
something.
let's not even go there. Yeah. Poor Jared. God love him. That's so funny.
But no, that's true.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's well, and then so one of the verses I guess I was drawn to or led to about that was in 1 Kings, and there were two. The first one was 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 58, and it says, "May he turn our hearts to him, to walk in obedience to him, and keep the commands, decrees, and laws he gave our ancestors." And then on to 61, it says, "And may your hearts be fully committed to the Lord our God, to live by his decrees and obey his commands at this time." And so, like you had mentioned something just a minute ago, like that made me think, of course, like, oh, that makes sense with that verse. Because you're like, are you really actually living it out? You know, like, do you really take the word for, like as serious as you should? You know, do you read and actually apply, or what is it in James when he says like, when he's talking about like when you look in the mirror and then like when you look away, you forget, I would have to look it up really fast. It's in James. But anyways, I just think like when you talk about a man who doubts, or whatever, and I'm just like a wayward or lukewarm or.
Lukewarm was the word in my mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, really Christian equals not lukewarm, not a fake Christian.
Yeah. Well, and then I was also, just sitting here like thinking too, like in Galatians, 5, when it talks about fruit of the Spirit. And, like really I think the two contrasts that you see in Galatians 5, where it talks about this, really give you like you can either kind of be walking this way and your life is reflecting these things, or you can be walking this way and your life is going to reflect these things. Yeah. And I mean, like you've got, because it talks about sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. So you've got all that stuff. And then, which I would say we could classify as not really Christian.
Right.
And then, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. It's like, I mean, honestly, I don't want to oversimplify it, but it's kind of like, look at your life, actually, critically, constructively, whatever you want to call it. And like, are you producing? Which of the two lists are more common in your life? And then ask yourself the question, am I really Christian?
Well, it kind of also makes me think too, like, my brother called me really Christian, but then like I look at like the Mama Hopes of the world. I'm like, no, she's really Christian. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like not me, her. Like, but you have, and I think that's something cool. Like, you have the wisdom and the experience, like you said. Like, and I'm just using Hope as an example because she pours so much into me. But like truly, she's just like that mother hen, and she like just keeps after all of us and she pours into all of us. And yet like you see her walking very hard things and yet she walks them the way that she's telling you how to walk yours. Like as you're coming to her, like, hey, I've got this going on. Like, what do you think? Or, do you have a word or pray for me or whatever? Like, and she, what she says to you is like exactly what she then like says and applies to herself when she's walking through something also difficult, So I think that's kind of cool too. Like, the way that just the genuinity in your faith and like the legitimacy of like, I am, a Christian and like my life reflects that. And it has nothing to do with like, I think it has very little to do with like us, but more so the obvious transformation that can only be done and happen through the power of the Holy Spirit, because that, I mean, I guess if we want to go ahead and go there, at least tease where we're going for the second part of this, it's like, the second part of this conversation is like when we get it wrong, like, oh, she's really Christian. And it's like, well, then let me tell you about my weekend because I did not act very Christian, whatever. Like, and again, that's a whole story I'll talk about in a second. But like, we can be quote unquote really Christian, people. But then in situations when we get it wrong, it's like it's like that transformation and the identity of like, oh, I'm a Christian. Like it really cannot be just only based upon like our decisions and our behaviors and just the good deeds, that we, talk about or read about or whatever. Like it really is just like the anointing and the authority and the power and the cleansing and the transformation and the refining that comes only through the Holy Spirit, and the power of God and the blood of Jesus. Like it has nothing really to actually do with us, but like if we want peace and love and joy, and if we want self-control and all these things, like I don't really know that there's a lot that we can really do in our flesh to get that other than just make the decision of like, here I am, like transform me, Lord, to be more and more like you. And then by his power, that is what he's doing. And then that's what people see. So people really are seeing the work of the Lord because it was just, you couldn't have done it in your own power or your own strength. We can't be our own transformation, which I think is interesting.
Yeah. And I think and I don't know if it's just, this is something that God is working to reveal more and more to just his people, or, we know Jesus is coming back eventually, and every day that goes by, we are one day closer to that day. But I think that there is more and more people realizing that just settling for status quo, or honestly just, and like we talked about a long time ago on the podcast, that like, that idea of just like surface level, shallow doesn't cut it anymore. Right. Like it's time to go and to dig deeper, and there's more there, and there's more for us to do, and there's more for us to learn, and there are more revelations there to be revealed, but we have to be willing to go there to see them, to be able to see them, and thinking through that, really the idea of almost like we've had a lot of, honestly, and I've been there myself, we've had a lot of people that I think probably honestly would fall into the lukewarm category, and I think more and more people, thankfully, are getting to the point of like, hey, it's time, like this doesn't cut it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like lukewarm doesn't cut it anymore. Like there's more there. We're called to more. There's more expected of us as Christians. And I mean, Revelation 3:15 through 16. I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. Would that you were either cold or hot. Boy, that doesn't make sense. I wonder if that's an error. An
error in the Holy Scripture.
Well, I mean, it's from the internet, so I mean, I'm not reading this out of my
that's Google
Bible as I normally would, but
I'm just messing.
Yeah, but anyways, so because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I forget about that.
Yeah. And I mean,
that like burns a little when you hear it.
Yeah, I mean, so because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. I mean,
like just think of how nasty like room temperature milk would be.
Yeah,
that's disgusting. And that's probably
Bo accidentally drank, like Bo leaves
what he's talking about.
Yeah, Bo leaves his milk out all the time.
That's so gross.
And he doesn't comprehend that like all milk he sees is not fresh from the refrigerator, And so like he'll just grab one, and he did the other day, and it did not end well.
No, because that's gross.
It was
lukewarm
gross.
is gross.
Yeah, but
but
lukewarm
I just think, milk, a lukewarm lifestyle, they're both nasty.
Yeah, but But I mean, like those are just really, really, really strong words. Really,
yeah.
I mean, that really is. That's. I mean, anybody that calls themselves Christian believes they're Christian. I mean, our ultimate goal is, in the end, like to be in heaven with God, with Jesus. And to think that could come, and you're told you were lukewarm. So or like they say, like I don't know, I don't know you, even though, because you never actually called me by name. You know, it just that kind of stuff is a reminder, I think, to all of us that it's not just something to do on Sunday mornings, you know, like it's not a social club. It's not just, you know, something that you can say, oh, I took my kids, you know, and just really trying to raise them right. You know, I mean, it is more than that. Like there's more to it than that. It's bigger than that. And it's a lifestyle. And like in your case, like other people are watching and it's noticeable when it is there. And it's also noticeable when it's not.
Well, I think with what you're saying, I remember a season where I kind of always just thought like Jesus was like for heaven. How do I say this? It was like, okay, you make a decision now, you know, because when I get to heaven, I'll be with Jesus. And it's like, although that is the truth, there really was this disconnect of like the reality of the opportunity to be with Jesus now too, you know? And I think when I think a lot. I don't mean to just be like throwing out all my opinions, but I do. I keep repeating myself. So I apologize. But I just think that's interesting. You know, like how many people make a decision in a moment because they want to go to heaven and they don't want to go to hell, or because they really do believe in Jesus. And so it's like, well, yeah, of course I want to go to heaven and be with Jesus. And I've said this before a long time ago, but I remember reading Crazy Love by Francis Chan and remember a part in it that just blew me away because I was very young. I was not like young. I was like high school, college, I think. And really digging into my faith and making it my own for probably the first time in my life. And I read it, and that was kind of an awakening moment of just like, whoa, like, he said, he basically was like, if heaven were this place of all of your favorite things, your favorite food, your favorite people, your favorite place, whatever. It was like a whole place where you had access to all of your favorite things. And he said, would you be content in heaven if Jesus wasn't there? And I was like, dang, because in my flesh, my answer was yes at the time, I'd be content, but like, bummer, you know what I mean? If we're being honest, like that really was like my honest response was I would be completely comfortable with all my favorite things in heaven. Because what did Jesus mean to me compared to all of those things? Like not much. He was just the way to get there. You know what I mean? And so then as like your relationship with him really grows, it really is like you really do, like the more you know him and the longer you follow him and the deeper you go, you really do actually learn his character and you really do see him moving and working and you gain respect for him. You gain this adoration for him. You gain this like sense of awe when you're like, this is so real, and you're like, you're the only one who could do this, or you're the only one who, whatever. Like, it's just when you walk with him and you're really in relationship with him, you really do get to the point where you then can answer that question and say, like, you can have like all the Honeycrisp apples you want in the world. Like if Jesus is not in heaven, I am not going. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, would you? Because Honeycrisp apples are my favorite fruit. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I mean, of all the food that you could want to have waiting for you in heaven,
Honeycrisp apples,
man,
peeled. I don't like the skin on my apples, but I also like tiramisu brownies. And
that's closer. Okay. That's closer to what I picture my heaven looking like.
Hayden would say Papa John's pizza.
Also would be in my heaven.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Anyways, our heavens would be very different, but they would both have Jesus, so that's good.
See, this is why Eve did what she did. You women are...
We're crazy, huh?
Yeah.
But
like, is that a Honeycrisp apple?
That's the one.
That's I need that.
So tempting. We are both severely just imperfect and love apples, and that's the problem that we run into in our flesh. Yeah. So, but yeah, anyways, but that's just kind of food for thought though too. It's just like, can you get to that place where you, if if heaven only had Jesus, would it be enough for you? You know? And it's just like, no, that's all I want. What do you mean? Like, of course it's enough, you know? But like, we can't really get to that place, honestly. We can know the answer we're supposed to say, but we can't honestly feel that way or think that or believe that until we've really walked away, you know, and, you know, that is aligned with Jesus and with Jesus to like develop that like love and compassion for him and that desire that it's like, no, like he's it. Like, you can have all this world, just give me Jesus, you know?
Well, and I think, and part of it is, and I like, we don't really, like, we can't comprehend, you know, we don't really get heaven. Like, we don't understand it, you know, we can't grasp it. We can't comprehend it. But I do think, you know, with what you're saying, it really does, as I was just sitting here thinking about even like my own questions that I've had about heaven, my own thoughts that I've had about heaven. But then I think about, you know, like, obviously we both will get a lot of questions, you know, people that are just curious, whatever, or, you know, like John just did a Q&A kind of thing, answering questions. But it is interesting. Most of the questions that I will get from a high school student or, you know, like back in the day, whatever, or like you get like, it's never about really like our interactions with Jesus and worship and all of that. But it's more, the question's always like, how much will heaven be like my life now?
Wow.
Like, are my loved ones going to be there? You know, am I going to recognize my husband? Will I recognize people from here? Like, will I get to do the things I like to do on earth now? You know, like, I mean, really, like, if we think about the majority of questions we ask about heaven, rarely involve Jesus.
That's
or
good.
like, you know, it's like they usually involve basically, is heaven going to be like my life now? Because if not, like, I want to be able to know people, and I want all my favorite people, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want them to be there, and I want to do my favorite things, and I want to eat Honeycrisp apples. And
I'm regretting that answer, even though that's my answer, but you're not going to let it go.
just feel like there's more there.
But
so I mean, like, I don't know, that just popped my, because I like, if I think about my questions about heaven that I've asked, I mean, it's a lot of the times, the majority of the time, they are questions of like really revolving around, will my life still basically be the same, just in heaven?
Right. Well, and then, you know, in a serious, to pose the like hard question, like the people who are grieving the loss of a child, you know, I can think of like 4 people right now off the top of my head who I know personally who have lost children within the last year or year or two. And it's like their longing for heaven is only just like, it's like the only like one of the only strains of hope that they have here on this side of heaven, because it's like, well, I know one day like we'll be together again, but it also is like truly their biggest longing for heaven, because, you know, such a huge piece of them, you know, is there and not here, and the grief was so heavy. And then I just think too, like, you know, but God, you say, like, you know, how his word is like, you know, basically, you know, when it talks about just like his place in our life, like our love for him to be greater than our spouse and our love for him to be greater than our children, because both of those things are a gift from him, but he's above them all. And I just think like I mean, truly, like right now in this moment, like if I were to lose a child, it's like, man, like would my longing for heaven, like I think it would birth in a way I don't have right now. I mean, I didn't think about, you know what I mean? You don't think about that, but you're just like, you know, but like, that's interesting. You know, like you tell me to love you more than all of these things. And if then losing one of those things that I, you know, then will miss and that I love, and that is, you know, so dear to me here on this earth, like if that's what creates a longing for heaven and a need for heaven over you, then it's like, I don't even know how to ask, but like, God, like set my heart straight, like set my heart right. But then like, how weird is that though? Because it's not like it's wrong to long for heaven when your spouse or child is there. You know what I mean? Like, you know, at all, but it is just kind of like this, man, Lord, like I have so much more to do and room to grow and time to spend with you to match my longing for you then. Like, thank you for showing me that. But it's like, isn't that crazy just how much he wants us and how like we don't even reciprocate that in any kind of level that we could. I mean, it's just mind blowing, really. Like, you just don't really know how much he loves you and how much he wants you to want him, like he wants us. Yeah. And then when you think about it in those kind of perspectives, like, it's like, wow, you really do love me, because I can't imagine measuring that to losing Hayden or a child, or, you know what I mean? Like, that kind of love is just, you just don't think about it, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And obviously I hope we'll go to heaven. I mean, I hope we do, like John talked about today, like there's indications that, we probably will recognize people. I mean, obviously I hope my wife and kids are there and then I do recognize them. Right. And, like, I don't think it's bad to have those, hopes and desires, but at the same time, it does in a way remind me of like, well, what is my ultimate, like, do I want to go to heaven to live with my wife and kids for eternity, or do I want to go to heaven to spend eternity with Jesus?
Right. I mean, that's wild to think about. Like, let's just be real. Like, I mean, like, I'm not posing a question of like right or wrong or anything like that, but it's like, holy cow, like, Lord, get that straight in me, like, cause I mean, man, that's just good. Like, that's wild to get your brain in a place like, in a place like that, comprehending something like that. But, wow.
So here's what I think.
What do you think?
I think the back half of this, because we kind of got off on a different direction,
we did.
Which
Shocker.
surprise, we did that.
What?
I say let's save when we get it wrong for part 2.
Are you gonna do part 2?
Let's do a part 2 because I feel like that's a whole nother.
That's a whole other.
That's
thing.
a whole nother thing.
I agree.
We already keep people on this long enough, so let's save that.
Let's save that
as a part 2. So. Spoiler, surprise. If you want to hear the rest of this episode, you'll have to tune in next time for part 2, which would be all about such a more fun topic when we get it wrong.
We can just talk way more about that.
We can talk a lot about getting it wrong, which is why we probably need our own episode. Just to talk about
You're so right.
getting it wrong. But so we appreciate you guys listening. Good stuff.
Food for thought.
A lot to think about. Food for thought.
Chew on it.
Yeah. Honeycrisp apples. just do some chewing there. So
That's
but
funny.
it's thank you guys for listening to the Praise Podcast. As we said at the beginning, really please share this podcast. Not for our sake, but just if this conversation you think would be beneficial or would spur a conversation on with a friend or a family member. This podcast sometimes could be a good way if you feel awkward or like you struggle to bring up conversations maybe between your spouse or your kid, your kids, whatever it is, friend. Use us as the excuse. Like, send them this podcast and say, hey, I listened to this and they said some interesting things. I'd love for you to listen to it and we could talk about it. And so it's kind of like we'll be the awkward conversation starter, and then you can just come to the interesting behind it. But so you can do that. Great. But seriously, share this podcast on your social media or with somebody that you think maybe would benefit from the conversation that we had here today. Of course, leave those ratings and reviews. We always appreciate that as well. But seriously, thank you all for listening and giving us so much of your time every other week, every other Mondays when we release a podcast. But you guys have dedicated a lot of hours and minutes to this podcast, and we don't take that lightly or for granted that you all listen to this. And we really have developed so many cool relationships with people from this podcast. And so selfishly, we love that.
Yeah, but truly, when we say email us, like, we love that. Like, we do get so many emails from people, and we read every single one.
Yep.
And sometimes we even like forward them to people who, like, I remember the other day someone had complimented even John, and I'm like forwarding it, praise for praise, we'll say, and sending it to John. Like, but we do, like, encouragement's so important, and our people are so important, relationships are so important. So truly, like, it just keeps us going and fueled and encouraged when we know that we're able to connect with real people on the other side of this conversation. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out and email us.
Yep, for sure.
Anytime.
Again, that's Eric@centralnow.com or Brooke@centralnow.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you all for spending some of your day with us. You've been listening to the Praise Podcast. Let's be people in every day, in every way, that bring the praise. We'll see you next time.